I think Sue Reedich is here.
Hi, yes, Sue Redick.
Hi, Sue.
Hi. Just seeking your approval to have our bicycles race on your roads from, they come out of Harvard on our Bolton Road, go onto your Harvard Road, and then to Green Road, and then they turn right on Bear Hill Road, entering back into Harvard at our Scott Road. So it's, I don't know, it's like a couple miles, mile or two. And they're on the roads from maybe 8:15 to 8:45. And that's Sunday, June 6th.
Is it June 6th or June 7th? I might have the wrong date.
Whatever I wrote on the paper is what's right.
All right, it looks like the request is for Sunday, June 7th.
That's the right date. So we have three marshals at the corner of Harvard Road and Green Road, and then 3 at Green turning onto Bear Hill, as the town has requested. We put tape notices on the mailboxes along the road, and then we have signage that goes up the day before also.
Okay, great. And it looks like you've received police approval. And,
yes, approval.
And you've requested your insurance certificate?
Yes, and I normally get it in March, but we're going to have it next week, so you will have it much sooner this year.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Oh, this is a wonderful, wonderful event. Any questions from the board?
No questions from me.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Motion to approve the event on June 7th for Harvard Lions Club.
Second.
All right, roll call. All in favor, Bill?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. All right, Sue, thank you very much.
Thank you. This is our, 16th, 14th, 15th year. It's been a long time, but thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm wondering maybe we should redo that and make it contingent on receipt of the insurance certificate.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I'll send that to Jenny, correct?
Right.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll get that to her within a week or so.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the Harvard Lions Club request to hold the triathlon on Sunday, June 7th, 2026, subject to receipt of their insurance certificate?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Bill?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Okay, there we go. Now we're all set.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an item that I think is of great interest, not just to the select board, but to all of our tax-paying residents right now. We have our assessor's office and regional resource group here to present an overview of the property valuation process and giving us some information about the process and how the real estate taxes are calculated. So I see that we have Dave Manzello here from Regional Resource Group. It looks like we also have a couple of folks from our assessing department. From our assessors, we have Jeff Nichols and Charlotte Johnson.
Looks like Rob Heckman is also in the meeting. He just doesn't have a video, so I can't add him as a spotlight.
Oh, okay.
And Kelly Garlick, our assistant assessor.
Okay, well, we have a full house from assessing tonight. So I know you guys have prepared a bit of a presentation, so I'm not sure, if how you guys want to present it, but.
Sure, I can start and hello to everyone. Hope everybody's bracing for this nor'easter we're coming our way. Oh, it's been a terrible winter. Let me see if I can share screen. There we go. Sorry. What was my page I just had up? So I'm gonna start with just this basic document here, which we do have on our assessor's webpage. So basically every year the assessors are charged with revaluing property. So fiscal 26, the assessment date or appraisal date, if you will, is January 1, 2025. So as of that date, the sales that took place from calendar year 2024 and the preceding year, if needed, are what are used in setting valuation. So it's an annual process. The goal is we don't do a single appraisal on every property. That would be impossible. Assessed values are what we call mass appraisal. So it's a statistic-based model that we do, and what we do is throughout the year, or prior year, I should say, as deeds come through the assessor's office from the registry of deeds, we analyze those deeds and cull out non-arm's length sales. So what I mean by arm's length sale is it has to have a willing buyer, willing seller, and there should be no duress. There should be no liens on the property, no instances of like it's an affordable unit, no foreclosures, no short sales, anything like that. So it has to be a marketed property to be arm's length. So most of the year is done through culling through those, cleaning up our information. And once we have that data set, it starts with what we call the assessment to sale ratio. And what that is very simply, what did the assessors have it valued at in the prior fiscal year? And what did it sell for? And you just divide the two and see what our level of assessment is on every single property, but as a town as a whole. Massachusetts is a 100% market value state. One of very few throughout the country, and one of very few that does this on an annual basis. So when I look at all the sales, we look at all the single families together, the two families, condominiums, vacant land sales. So we group everything with like what we call use codes. If people watch our classification hearing, you can hear us talk about the different use codes and see our LA4 report, which reports all the valuations throughout the town. When I look at the single families, we have to meet criteria both on all the single families as a whole. So the median assessment to sale ratio should be at 100% of market value. But then we also have to analyze different groupings of all those single families. So colonials, ranches, capes, where do they sit in town? When were they built? What's the grade? All these different subsets. And as we subdivide those, all those should also be in that 100% market value, which there's a range. It's between 90 and 100% is the guidelines. So as you can imagine, with dozens of sales, you really need to do the subsets in order to figure out what's changing the market, what's hot, what's not, where's the hot parts in town that might be selling for more than other places in town. So in all those subsets is where you can see, where's my little, where we come up with what our percent changes are and how things are moving from year to year. So this is a quick little graph that kind of shows what happened in fiscal 2026. Now, I had taken out, as you can see up top, new constructions, and then municipal exempt and other categories, which would be miscellaneous categories that are like mixed, some oddball mixed use type things. But the biggest change happened with our two families. As everyone knows, the rental market is crazy. Rents are through the roof, and that's part of what we look into as an income and sales basis on multifamily properties. So two families, those went up 13%. Multifamilies overall in town went up 6%. Condominiums almost 6%. Single family homes, and these are averages throughout town, these increases. Single families 5.5, a little better than 5.5. Commercial 4.6. Three families, I only have one or two, or actually, sorry, there's 12 there. So 2%. Vacant land went up 2%, and then agricultural chapter land went up 0.9%, but that's all dictated by the state. So those values are changed annually by the state, and we're told what to put in to plug into those. But what I think what more importantly folks are concerned about is the single families. So I have a little graph here that shows or residential properties in general, how those played out. So again, two families, large increase. Ranches were almost close up to 10%. Raised ranches, very similar, up to 10%. Older colonial type properties were at 9. Bungalows, 8.65. Split levels, 7.75. And then garrison and colonials, very similar, 7% and 6%. Contemporaries, 5.5. And capes were on the higher end last year. I think last year they were upwards of over 10%. And interestingly enough, held pretty flat overall. So there was very little change, if any, in the cape category. So I just wanted to put together, let me zoom in on this. How everything kind of plays out and ties out with levy and taxes. So here I put together the last 3 years of, you can see the levy has increased over the last 3 years, as well as excluded debt, which hopefully everyone's aware that voted at town meeting was to build a new school. And that debt really hit in hard in 2026, which you can then see in your tax rate, where your tax rate went from 1662 to 1807. That's quite a big increase. So your levy from last year to this year went up 15.18%, largely due to your excluded debt, which created a 8.72% increase. So what was that impact overall? So based on a $500,000 value, just on your tax rate increase, if the value was to stay the same from 1 year to the next, that's a $725 annual increase based on your tax rate. You add in your average market adjustment of 5.53% in the single family homes, and that gets you an average annual tax bill of $95.34.64. Other things that would affect people's tax bill, improvements, if they did any improvement to the property, building permits, anything that was not there in the prior fiscal year that's taxed this year is going to increase the valuations. I'm trying to think what else. And then, there's also, we have to do cyclical inspections on an annual basis. So if we go out to a property and corrections were made for whatever reason of something that wasn't there prior, that would get picked up and be taxed in this fiscal year. That's a quick and dirty. I was gonna pause there and we can take questions and elaborate as we go.
I have some questions that aren't necessarily directly related to the presentation, but does any board member have a question about information that was just presented?
I have a quick question. Thank you, David, and to all the assessors team for that. I think that was really helpful. So I know at the beginning you said it's not like you individually look at every single property. Let's say let's just call it like 1,800 residential properties. You're not looking at every single property every year. You're looking mainly at sales from the prior year and then kind of extrapolating to come up with an estimate. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, yeah. So like I said, it's mass appraisal. So we don't just take a percentage modifier and throw it across the board. Because then you wouldn't really, well, number one, we wouldn't meet the state standards, but number two, you also wouldn't have fair and equitable assessments in relation to what the market is representing. So, if anybody goes out in the market, you would know that, and if you're looking for a home, one home isn't equally going up as much as another home. There's desirability. There's supply and demand. So all those things kind of play in. Bolton has been historically a desirable town to live in. And if people are set on, hey, I want to live in Bolton, they're going to go after what's the most affordable style home. Typically, it's a ranch, and it's not going to be as expensive as a colonial, and they're going to fight and compete to try to get that ranch for what they can afford. But as we know right now, there's scarcity in the market, so there's still a lot of over ask and multiple bids.
But one of my questions though was, do you apply an adjustment to every property every year, or is there like a cycle?
So there's cost tables. So what we have is a market adjusted cost model. So our valuations are based on a cost basis, very similar to what a contractor would use to cost out building a house. And we adjust those cost tables based on the market, based on styles, location. If I see, and it's happened in Bolton in previous years, if I see the high end of the market coming down, I would look at our modifier for our higher grade homes and I would adjust that modifier down. And those folks might not see as much of an increase as other properties in town. So it's a bunch of cost tables and modifiers that I adjust in order to, when I relook at my statistics, to make sure all my statistics are meeting the right levels and showing that I'm valuing everybody equitably.
Okay, thank you.
Dave?
Yes.
Hi. This is Charlotte Johnson. I'm on the Board of Assessors. Did everybody get all of that? Because there's a quiz at the end of the presentation. I'm going to answer one question that Brian, you brought up. When we say we don't individually adjust a single property one at a time, if you had a sale of 700,000 on a house and it was assessed at 6, the question is, do we bring you up to the rate at 700,000? And the answer is no. We're doing across the town the values. You can tell what a fun job this is by what Dave said. We all have a supply of Tylenol at home. But the value is based on the market. And we go through extensive things in order to, as Dave showed you, very elaborate procedure. The rate is based on what happened at town hall. So that's what makes people crazy, is, well, how come my house went up this amount of money? It went up because the market indicated what the value was. And we have in our office, when we do this, we have the comparables that we use for each one of these categories by analyzing the sale data. People, when we're doing inspections, we have people getting very upset because they think that Jeff and Marcy and I are responsible for their tax bill. So we're a real popular bunch of people. But the value is based on the market. The rate is based on the result of the town warrant every year and how it's apportioned by the value. Does that help or make you crazy?
No, it's helpful, Charlotte. Thank you.
Okay.
Bill, do you have any questions?
Yes, David. What is the lag time? Is it the same lag time for renovations and permits as looking at the previous fiscal year or calendar year?
Good question. So back in the 80s, there was something passed through, it was under what was called the Hockington Bill, or Chapter 653, which towns either adopted or not. Bolton had adopted that. So we can collect information on permits up until, so for this coming calendar year 2026 for fiscal 2027, I can go out and collect permit information up until June 30th of this year. So you get an extra 6 months to grab that extra work that's being done to properties, whether it's lot splits or new construction additions, what have you, which attributes to the new growth that we talk about at the classification hearing, which the more new growth that we have, which is anything that wasn't assessed in the prior fiscal year, will essentially increase the amount of the levy, which will also increase if the town chooses to levy the full amount, what the tax rate will be.
Okay, thank you.
And my question is a little bit more geared to, I think, some of the feedback that we're hearing directly from residents right now, which is, why is my tax bill in February so much different than it was in November? So can you explain a little bit the difference between, what your annual real estate tax is and preliminary taxes and how the quarter system works?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of confusion right now.
Yeah, it confused me for the first few years I was in the business as well. It is a confusing thing between calendar year and fiscal year and quarterly billing. So a fiscal year begins July 1st. So fiscal year 2026 began last July 1st, July 1 of 2025. And you get a tax bill in July. That is quarter one. We call those first two quarters preliminary or estimated bills. And the reason for that is because we don't set a tax rate or values until quarter three. So those preliminary estimated bills are based on your prior fiscal year value, prior fiscal year tax rate. They're notoriously always going to be lower than your actual bill because the actual bill will be based on whatever the new tax rate is and the new valuation. So if you look at your tax bill coupon for January, a lot of people are in the habit of, they'll look at the total tax amount and divide it by 4 and say, my tax bill's wrong. But what you have to do is look at what you paid in your preliminaries, which is usually the next line or two down on your tax bill. Subtract that out from the total, and you'll see if I take that divide that by 2, that's quarters 3 and 4.
So is it fair to say that quarters 3 and 4 sometimes are you're playing catch up?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Because I know that there was a lot of conversation about why there was specifically a difference between November and February payments.
Now, on the flip side, if you do take that total tax and divide it by 4, that will be more closely proximate to your coming preliminary bills in July.
Thank you.
So, David, in quarter 1 and 2, is that tax bill based off the old tax rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything else any of the assessors want to share? Or?
So we do have, I try to be very proactive, and I think Rob has got stuff on the website, and if we haven't yet, I apologize, and we can get it to folks if they request it. But we always try to get a list of full townwide values, which you can also get your individual values, your neighbor's values, your property card and such from our GIS website, which there's a link to on the assessor's page. And we also put on the sales, a list of the sales that took place in the calendar year for the relevant fiscal year, along with what we call the assessor's annual brochure, which kind of breaks down values, the town budget, where your taxes are spent, all those kinds of good tidbits of information. Anybody that's looking to do an appeal on their valuation, you have 30 days from the issuance of the third quarter bill. So typically it's January 1st. So January 1st to February 1st. You need to be thorough in what you put in your application. Request a copy of your property card, see if your data is correct. If your data is incorrect, 100% will come out. We'll take a look. We'll fix it. Do whatever needs to get done on that aspect. If you think it's a valuation issue, but your data is correct, be prepared to, show us some data. Why do you think this is overvalued? The sales are on our website. Show us some other stuff that, here you go. What points to us being overvalued on your property? Always 100% happy to fix data correction. I do not like bad data because bad data gives bad values. So we always want to fix that and get everything accurate as possible. That's why also every year we're out there doing what we call cyclical inspections to make sure that the data we have is correct. We want to make sure everybody's got their decks, their sheds, their if there's a finished basement, it's on there, or if we have something that isn't supposed to be on there, we want to take it off. So be vigilant in reviewing your property data.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you putting that presentation together. I think it was very, very helpful. It provided a lot of good information that is very timely for folks in Bolton. So thank you again. And any
You're welcome.
final questions from the board?
No, just appreciate it. So thank you all.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thanks, everybody. We are going to go a little bit out of order on our agenda just because we're running a little bit late. And I see that we have our DPW director here. So we're going to take up our next agenda item, which is transfer station. And the first issue that we have before us tonight is a discussion and vote on identifying stickers for household users and associated fees. This is kind of picking up with something that I think we came before the board last February, if I remember correctly, when we had discussed and voted on implementing an annual sticker for the transfer station use. And we sort of suspended that once we had the ad hoc transfer station group doing work and making recommendations. But now we have a transfer station committee. We'll be talking about appointments later tonight. But I think it's a good time to bring back the discussion about the stickers and the pricing. I think one of the things that the board had been looking for when we talked about the stickers last year was trying to make the transfer station more revenue neutral instead of being such a big line item in the budget that's funded by all taxpayers. I think the idea was to have the expenses of the transfer station really paid by the folks who are using it. So right now, the transfer station expenditures from the warrant for last year's town meeting is about $300,000 between the expenses of hauling away garbage and disposal and the employees. And we were only generating in the order of about $100,000, maybe a little bit less in revenue from the bag fees. So the idea, I think, is to try and bridge that gap so that that $200,000 difference is not being funded so much on the backs of all of the taxpayers, but specifically the people who are using it. And that was one of the recommendations that came out of the ad hoc transfer station group. So I don't know if either of you want to kind of throw your 2 cents in terms of thoughts about how to go about pricing the stickers. Marie, I don't know if you want to share your thoughts on it at this point. I know you and I differ a little bit on our thoughts on there.
We do, yeah. I would be happy if I may. I think given that we're not entirely sure who are the number of households that are using the transfer station, we can see the tonnage. We can make some guesstimates of total residences minus the multifamilies, minus the number of sites on the private hauler list, but there is no certainty. And I would be inclined for a very low dollar sticker, just nudging folks into compliance. Part of the interest in forming the ad hoc group was to, figure out a path to financial self-sustainability. but I'm terrifically mindful, even based on the assessor's presentation earlier. Huge tax rates. I want to encourage people to comply and would be in favor of a very nominal sticker price.
Yeah, and my thought is that, I understand that we are still kind of in the early days of looking what the actual revenue is since we did raise the bag prices last year. And we're still kind of coming off the switch from the stickers to the bags. So I do think we're still in a bit of an adjustment period. But I also think that following the override last year, I really think that it's important to start bringing this more revenue neutral. So my thought would be, I think there are a couple of different categories of stickers that we should be talking about. One of which is possibly free stickers for some of our seniors who are financially needing some relief. And a second category could be seniors over 65 to get a discounted sticker, and then a regular price sticker. And my thought is, to do a sticker in the area of $50 to start for the regular price sticker, and maybe half of that for senior citizens, and free stickers for qualified seniors who have a financial need. So that's sort of my thought process, but I'm very interested to hear what you guys think as well, Brian and Bill.
So Kate, I wasn't involved in the initial discussions on this. Have we ever done a car count over a period of time to get an idea how many cars are going through the transfer station?
I maybe some other members of the ad hoc group who I see here know whether that was done or not. I don't think that it was. I think that the numbers were more calculated based on the number of households that we believe to be receiving private trash pickup, because those are registered. And we've got about 2,000 households in town, give or take, and roughly 1,000 of them are receiving private trash hauling, we believe. So
Okay.
theoretically, that leaves about 1,000 other residents who are making use of the transfer station in some significant way. But I think the first year of having a sticker will be the first time that we actually have a full head count of how many households are taking advantage of the transfer station.
And
So,
I'm
Go-
sorry, go ahead.
so I think the first couple of years are still going to be some information gathering.
Mhm.
So we may need to adjust prices, within a year or two. But I also think that this is a good opportunity to just start closing that financial gap.
And what about multiple cars in a household?
I think that's up for discussion. I think the ad hoc group had talked about that. We could do it by household. We could do one price for a first sticker and a smaller fee for a second sticker. I think that's really up to us to figure out how to do that.
Mhm.
I don't have strong feelings, and there's a part of me that thinks it's easier just to do it by household and give 2 stickers per household.
Mhm.
But we could do a nominal amount of $10 or $20 for a second sticker.
Question, when Marie, you mentioned you're recommending a nominal amount, was that, well, first of all, what is the amount? And second, what is there any differentiation based on category, the way Kate is suggesting, or is it just everybody per car?
I would be not my nominal amount definition really is like $5, because I want to nudge people into compliance to have it be significant, but also there'd be a background administrative process And I don't want to make that tricky because I believe I'm looking at the people who'd be dealing with that background process right now on the town hall side. So to have something that encourages compliance, but doesn't become terrifically tricky for the town hall to be sure that people have, provided the information and we can get their sticker to them.
Yeah. Well, I can share some of my initial thoughts. And let me just first say, I don't think that there's any like clearly right answers here. So, but just off the top of my head, um, given that this is a new program or way of trying to track usage by car, I probably would be more in favor of a price that incentivizes maximum compliance and has less administrative complication. So, for example, if it's just like $5 per car, that's pretty easy. It's not so high that um, the folks that are struggling wouldn't be able to pay it. And given that we are probably anticipating that this could change, the pricing could change in a year or two, a very simple one size fits all low price for at least the first year that we're doing this seems like it could be kind of the simplest way to inaugurate this program. So that's where I'm at just based on what's been said so far, but I'm open to hearing other viewpoints clearly. And also, I don't know if Mr. Haglund has a viewpoint or thoughts on this as well.
Andy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, not really. I mean, I think Marie's point of it being on the lower side will certainly make it a lot more palatable for the residents and also for our interactions with the residents at the transfer station. Now, bear in mind, we do track who comes into the transfer station. We track who buys bags with their address. Same thing with disposal of bulk items because they have to pay for a check by check. And Leslie, in fact, was working on that the last couple of days, determining how many households utilize the transfer station based on their address. And it was, memory serves, it was around 1,200. So I don't think Kate's number was too far off. In other communities, I mean, this got brought up quite a few years ago, and I did a little bit of research, and the advisory ad hoc did not speak to me. The theory behind stickers, and if you talk to Tessa at the state representative, the circuit rider, she will say the purpose of the stickers is to cover your fixed costs, your employment costs, your health insurance, and those kinds of electricity and those kinds of costs. Price for the bags should cover the cost of disposal of the municipal solid waste. Just bear that in mind. I mean, but back to Marie's point, I think a low initial, if the board so chooses, implementation of a lower fee initially anyway. Having multi-tiers where some are free, some are half price, and I think that would really confuse everybody. And who makes the determination? I don't want our staff at the transfer station being responsible for making that determination. We kind of missed our window with the selling of the stickers in the community I live in. There's an insert that goes in with the census, the street list. And if you want a vehicle sticker, you write a check and they send it to you. You submit it at the same time you submit your census and with a stamped envelope, and they mail the sticker back to you. Same with like dog licenses and things like that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the city clerk or the town clerk is pretty close to sending those out if she has not already. So it's going to create we've kind of missed the easy window to implement this, my point being. It's going to create the implementation of this is going to create a lot of consternation among the residents and users of the transfer station. And what type of, how long is the board want a transition period in? How long is a sticker good for? Is it a fiscal year? What do you do if a car comes in that doesn't have a sticker? Oh, it's on my other car. It becomes an enforcement nightmare. I've dealt with stickers before in another community, and that was our biggest challenge is people didn't want the stickers on their cars, didn't want them on their windows, didn't want them on the inside, outside, fenders, you name it. They didn't want it. A lot of them put it above on their rear view, on their sun shields, on their visors. They did not want to have stickers on their car. It's just that's my theory behind it, my thoughts. Whatever the board decides.
Yeah, so I do just want to go back to the fact that I think it was last February that the board did vote to implement a sticker system and charge $100 per sticker. And I think the discounted rate for seniors was 60 at that time. So, this is something that has been under discussion with the idea of being to narrow that gap between what the transfer station costs to the taxpayers and what it brings in as revenue. And, I know that there are people who are hesitant about stickers, but I think the long and the short of it is that it is the way that we can help to close the gap. There's certain, we will have a transfer station committee who can help with the implementation and make recommendations for the implementation of all of these things, including whether, it goes on a calendar year or, a fiscal year. But, and I do want to, I've done some math on a couple of different assumptions, just so everybody knows what the money looks like right now. My understanding is that we have brought in more in bag sales than historically we have because the prices went up, so that makes sense. So in the first 6 months of fiscal 2026, there were about $73,000 in bag sales. So we're on track for roughly $150,000 in bag sales. And I think there's about $21,000 in revenue from recycling, if I've got that number right. So, we're still a long way from bridging the gap between, $150,000, $160,000 and $300,000. So looking at what we might charge for a sticker, if we assumed that we were going to sell 700 regular stickers at $50 a pop, that's only $35,000. If we're selling it at a nominal fee, 700 stickers at a nominal fee of $10, that's only $7,000. So in my mind, $7,000 really at the nominal amount, even as we're getting this up and running, it really doesn't help the budget situation that I'm interested in trying to correct. So those are just, for your consideration in terms of how much money we're talking about, trying to bridge, $150,000 gap. So, Bill, do you have any thoughts on stickers and prices?
I agree with you, Kate. I think although a nominal fee would increase compliance, it just doesn't move the needle enough. I would say at least $50 for a sticker. I would say that it would make sense to have 2 stickers per household. And I would do it on a calendar year, not a fiscal year.
So what are the thoughts on doing a different level of pricing for seniors?
Hey, can I just make one point? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure, Jenny.
I just want to comment on the tracking of the revenue so far. Doesn't factor in the senior bag program, which was cut in half. So seniors are getting half the allotment that they got the previous year, which means the second half of the year, when they run out of bags, our revenues should increase significantly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think Kate, to your question, I think some type of tiered approach makes sense. A discounted rate, and I think your idea was to have a discounted and a free rate as well.
Yeah, my thought, and I'm not sure exactly how to go about it, but we do have the elderly and disabled tax fund that seniors over 65 can apply for it and
Mhm.
qualify for some relief if they meet the criteria established by the committee. My thought would be that seniors who qualify with the elder and disabled tax fund should be entitled to a free sticker. And seniors over 65 in general should be entitled to a discounted sticker. But, half of whatever the regular rate is.
Quick question on timing. When do you want this sticker program to be up and running?
So I think it's going to be hard to get up and running in the first year. Bill, remind me, what did you just say in terms of calendar or fiscal year?
I think the time for the sticker should be on a calendar year basis. I think fiscal year would confuse people even further.
So what we could do is as we roll it out, we could try and get it started for the beginning of fiscal 27, but have that sticker good for 18 months.
Yeah, that's
So,
a good
and then
idea.
it would be on a calendar year basis, but that would give a lot of wiggle room for people to get accustomed to a new sticker system, in that time period.
I just think Randy's point, the easy time to do it, people are used to doing those type of things in January. If you had to do it in June with holidays and school out and everything else, I think it would be much more difficult for people to get done.
Yeah, I think as long as we're consistent. Jenny, did you have something else?
You're
You're
muted.
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 Sorry about that. One thing I wanted to note is that the senior bag program runs on a fiscal year and that the age cutoff for that program is 61. So it might be a little confusing to have different ages and a different cycle for the two programs. Just something to consider.
No, I know that there's a discrepancy in the ages, but I guess there's a part of me that wonders why we picked 61 as an age when 65 is sort of it's the number that we're using for the elderly and disabled tax fund. So I think maybe changing it to 65 might just be a sensible place to go.
So Kate, if the idea is that people are using stickers by July 1, 2026, right? That's what you're hoping for?
Hoping, yeah.
Then I guess my question to Marie is, I know it says vote on our agenda tonight, but I'm feeling like I would like to just have the full program written out on a piece of paper so we can actually see it, because it's actually difficult to track, as Jenny pointed out, the pricing of the bag and the ages and like I think we just actually need to see what is the full proposed program. And I just don't know if we have an extra meeting to get that information pulled together.
Well, no, I think that makes sense. I have something that I've got in front of me that I've been working on, but it's not fully complete, and I didn't know what the pleasure of the board would be in terms of what direction we would be going. So I can.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kate. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so if we do have a little bit extra time, I'll also just say that I was really interested in the feedback that we got from our DPW director tonight about administrability enforcement responsibility, his prior experience with stickers in general. And so to the extent the stuff that you're working on can address that, Kate, I would find that really, really helpful to review before the next meeting, because I think all three of us share a goal of trying to bridge the gap revenue wise, but I also really think it's important to try to get as many people participating and doing it in a way that's not going to be incredibly burdensome for the employees who have to administer it. So I think that there's a balance we need to strike in this first year.
Well, and maybe it is somewhat simplified if we set a target of January 1st of 2027 and give ourselves enough time to really prepare for it. Maybe not with the goal of doing it on July 1st, but doing it throughout the fall, with the help of the transfer station committee, who we will be appointing to help with some of that. I am familiar with the DPW director's concerns, because we certainly had discussions during the ad hoc process. But I think the overarching feeling was that stickers are a good way to track compliance, make sure that only people in town who are supposed to be using the transfer station are. But so, yeah, I'm familiar with his concerns, and I can work on addressing some of those in something that I put together. Brian, would you be supportive of $50 to start out, or is that?
I will say the thing that's giving me the willies for this first year is the tiering. Like, I just think the simpler the information that we're giving to people can be, the better. And I totally get in concept why tiers eventually might make sense, but I guess I just I'm thinking about rollout of new programs in other contexts, and it tends to be better to start with something that's like very, very clear and easy to explain and understand. So I just get nervous that tiering it could get confusing. But
I think the flip side of that is if we change it in a year, it's equally confusing, possibly even more so for people who've just gotten used to one thing.
I think though that if we do tier, then we need to make sure that the way it's done with bags is consistent with the way it's done with stickers, and we're using the same ages and thresholds and all of that.
Agreed. Okay, so no vote tonight. I'll work on putting together kind of a more comprehensive proposal, and we'll address that at a future meeting. All right, the next item on the agenda is introductions and appointments to the Transfer Station Committee, which we created at our last select board meeting. I know that we have a number of people who have expressed interest, and we are incredibly grateful for your willingness to volunteer for this new committee. So we have 5 positions open, and I think a couple of people are not here, and one I think had to leave early, but I believe that we have Alan Levin and Dave Bosselet and Christopher Erickson are all here. In addition, we have had statements of interest from Paige Ferment and from Robert Tarby. So again, thank you all for your willingness to participate. And if you don't mind, this would be a good time to introduce yourself and just let us know what your interests are and why you'd like to serve on this committee. So why don't we start with David Bosselet?
Okay, thank you very much. Just to start off, I mean, I'm a newbie to town. I'm kind of way short of being a townie. I've only been in town for about 34 years. During that time, I've had extensive engagement with town, served on the planning board for too long, served on the advisory committee for, oh God, about 15 years. So I've been very engaged in parts of the town planning. I had to get out of town government in part because of my career. I had to travel extensively internationally, and the two just didn't work out. And when I retired about 2.5 years ago, I've been able to really start picking up some of the things that are near and dear to me. In addition to obviously what I've done in the past, I think a few of you guys know, very passionate about a number of other things like working with the scouting, which would be one of the key constituents up at the transfer station. I currently am the president of our Scout Council, where we provide services to about 4,000 youth across the central part of the state. And then there's a few other volunteer initiatives that I'm very engaged in. And Brian and Marie, without announcing it publicly because it's not ready for limelight, I think you guys are very well aware of another passion that we hope to bring forward later this spring. It's actually sitting in my garage right now, so we're getting close. One of my objectives of trying to serve on this is not just on the revenue side. One, I think the key objectives is also looking at the expense side. What can we do to divert more from the costly tipping to other types of, sources of revenue for us? And that's potentially where the scouts come in. If we can divert more of the cans, the bottles, et cetera, away from having to go to a tipping fee. And then there's some other things that the committee talked about that potentially could be, again, an expense. I don't want to say reduction because in this business, the expenses just always go up, but maybe try to help, with a nominal impact on the expenses. So that's who I am. And, any questions, fire away.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate hearing it. Any questions from the board?
No, I think it's awesome that you're interested in serving in this capacity. So thank you.
Brian, you're so welcome.
All right, and Alan Levin.
Some of you know that I was a member of the ad hoc transfer committee, and Kate knows that I have at least as aggressive a sticker view as she does. So I do have a concern about revenue and break-even point where, the transfer station actually does pay for itself. I have an interest in more data collection and making decisions with data. We did a pretty good job with the survey. So, we got over 300 results of the survey. One of the things I mentioned to Marie was that in retrospect, it would have been nice to ask how long people using the transfer station had lived in town, because we saw a bias of age toward the upper end of the people who answered a survey. And my guess is that they've also been in town residents for a long term. I'm also a member of the Elderly and Disabled Tax Fund Committee, which is one of the reasons why I think that the people who apply successfully to that should get free stickers. But I think the last thing is I want to investigate more uses of technology to help out Randy and his people, so that there are other things other than just people trying to look at things to understand what's going on.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions?
No, thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
All right, and Christopher Erickson.
You're muted.
There you
I
are.
apologize. I'm calling from the airport. My name is Christopher Erickson. I moved to Bolton over the past summer, and my primary primary interest in serving on the committee is learning, frankly, more about the town that I now live in. I have had an interest in sort of trash and recycling policy since I was in college. I worked for the Amherst College Facilities Department and helped chronicle the usage of those facilities there. And my professional role as an attorney touches on sort of green guide compliance, as well as sort of claims made about recycling. But my primary interest is trying to help the town in a manner that I can, learn more about it. And, you know, I've used the transfer station and I've been impressed by it so far.
All right. Well, thank you for volunteering. Welcome to town. And there's no better way to get to know people than by spending time at the transfer station.
Thank you.
One of our other applicants is Paige Furman. She had to leave a little while ago, but I met Paige. She served on the ad hoc group as well. And she was one of the fearless souls who I believe went on 1 million different tours of other transfer stations to do comparisons and to see how other towns operate. So yeah, I know that she will be a good addition as well. And Jenny has reminded me that we actually do not have confirmation from our final person who had expressed interest. We do not have confirmation that he is interested in accepting the appointment. So my thought would be not to make an appointment of someone who may not want to accept it, but we could always circle back and make the appointment at a future time once we have confirmation from him. So any other questions from the board for the slate of candidates?
No, I think we've got like a great set of people with a lot of skills to bring to bear. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I agree. So the way that we are proposing to make the appointments was basically in the order that people expressed interest and assigning them to a term. Each of them is a 3-year term, right, Jenny? Did I get that right? Yes. Okay. So the proposal would be for Alan to serve a term expiring in June of 2027, for Paige to serve through June of 2028, for Dave to serve through June of 2029, for Chris Erickson to serve through June of 2027, and then we would have a vacancy for the term expiring in June of 2028. So that being said, is there a motion to make appointments to the transfer station committee?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Bill,
Aye.
Brian,
A yes.
and I am also a yes. All right, well, thank you all. We look forward to working with you. I think there's an awfully lot of work to do to get some of these goals accomplished, but I know that we've got great people, and thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
All right. So we're going to circle back to our other agenda item that we skipped over, which was consideration of the special town meeting. At our last meeting, we had voted to call a special town meeting to make some transfers of funds from free cash to cover the expenses related to the temporary disinfection system at the public safety building and library. But since we had that meeting, I've had some conversations with Bob Guerrero from Advisory. You may remember that Advisory had declined to transfer $71,000 from the reserve fund to cover the the temporary disinfection because they didn't want the reserve fund to be depleted, which makes good sense. But after conversations with Bob, he had suggested that he thought advisory would be amenable to making a $35,000 transfer from the reserve fund and looking to the local improvements line for the other $35,000 and not replenishing the $50,000 that already has been transferred from the reserve fund for the initial temporary solution. So that being said, you know, we could, if we were so inclined, I think we could probably avoid having a special town meeting to address this. But would seek the feedback of the board in terms of whether to move forward with a special town meeting or not.
Do we have a sense of the likelihood that advisory will do that?
I know that Bob had raised it at advisory at the meeting this past week and discussed it. And I mentioned that we had an agenda item tonight to discuss it. So my belief is that if we are in agreement, that advisory would have a vote next week to make that reserve fund transfer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
Okay, and I am as well. I think avoiding a special town meeting for this would be preferable. And I think we can get through to May.
So Kate, I'm sorry, quick question. So that would mean at the annual town meeting, we would have a warrant to do what? Replace the local improvements?
Marie, can you speak to the logistics of how that would work?
Yep, I would be supportive of the warrant to replenish local improvements for fiscal 26. Leaving the improvements coming up in the spring at the jurisdiction of the DPW director as to what to prioritize first with the somewhat depleted amount. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Marie.
And I see that the DPW director is still here. Randy, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this or any concerns that you had?
My only concern is I don't know what the status of the advisory reserve account is, but the building account is going to be over by quite a bit because of some unanticipated expenses in the building account. My suggestion is the advisory, we'll pay the total amount of the local improvements now until we have a better handle on the expenses in the building account and what's needed from advisory to cover those extraneous expenses, or wait until the May town meeting and then do a transfer for whatever that balance is. I'm just concerned about Bob at the last advisory meeting that we spoke about this, raised a question about, the balance in the advisory account. And I advised him at that time, I gave him a heads up saying, you're going to be seeing a request for the building. I don't have enough in the building department account right now to pay the cleaners through the end of June, through the end of the fiscal year.
To pay the cleaners for just the general cleaning of the town buildings?
Just for instance, yeah, for the town buildings, correct.
Do you have a sense of how much you're going to be looking at there, the deficit?
I don't know yet. It's probably on the order of 20 or 30,000, something like that. The biggest expenses were a couple of roof repairs that were needed at the library, and it totaled about $40,000.
Okay, so you're looking at a potential deficit of $20,000 in the building account.
Potentially, yeah. That's my guess at this point.
Okay, so are you still, just to be clear, are you still going to be asking for a $35 transfer from the reserve fund?
I am not. I am not going to be requesting that at this time.
Okay. But you might be requesting 20,000 for the building, or that is something that would wait until May.
That will be a future request, not at the immediate time. We still have funds in that line. But projecting out what the expenses are going to be, I can see there's going to be a shortfall in the building, like it has existed virtually every year since I've been here.
Okay, so it sounds to me like we're still in a position that we can get through to May and do a warrant article. Because there is money in the reserve account, and Randy's not asking to tap into that right now, but may ask in the future to tap into it. For about $20,000, which is less than the 35,000 that advisory already was willing to give. So is everybody still comfortable with not moving forward with a special town meeting on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to sum up, it sounds like everybody believes we can get through to the very beginning of May and then deal with what we might have to deal with through warrant articles in that first week of May.
So Marie, do we need a vote to not move forward? Do we just?
At this point, we have not received any citizen petition for the special town meeting that have been called, no 200 signatures. And there is no warrant article in front of you for consideration. Timing wise, this would be the last date to close the warrant. I would say, given you have no articles and no warrant, to just cancel the special town meeting.
Okay. By motion?
Why not? Boot and
All
suspend.
right. All right. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to cancel the special town meeting.
And I second that. It was for February 12th.
Yep. Okay. All in favor, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Okay, and the next item on the agenda, which we're going to cover, even though we're not going to do a special town meeting, but we are going to consider a warrant communication plan. Jenny, did you want to take us through your recommendations for warrant communication going forward? You're muted.
Sure, there's only one modification from when I went through it at the last meeting, which was the addition of the Code Red piece that Brian had suggested. But I'm happy to, let me get it open.
And how would the Code Red work, Jenny?
Well, that would be up to the board. We could either use Code Red to announce the town meeting, or we can use Code Red to announce the location of the warrants for pickup. We can do both. There is a cost for sending out a Code Red message. The way that it works is the town gets 7,500 calls per year free that are non-emergency, and those calls are for each connected call that it makes. So one message, if it's sent out to 2,000 people, would absorb 2,000 of the 7,500. The numbers right now that we have 921 subscribers, and this is actually a good opportunity to update with you with some outdated information that I gave you at the last meeting. We have 921 registered subscribers to Code Red, but in addition to that, on the new platform that Code Red has just moved us to, they have another database that contains 1,900 contact numbers. Those numbers we can't see. It's just a database that they control, and it mainly consists of landlines, not cellular data, but it would cover people that have landlines on their phones, who I would argue would constitute the people we would be most interested in reaching, people that aren't using the internet, maybe non-subscribers to the website. So that would be valuable. So you could estimate, like, what is that, 2,700 people per call? So we could get 2 calls out for free. My long-winded answer.
Okay, and are we currently using any of those 7,500 in an average year for any reason? For
We don't send
non-emergency?
out we haven't sent out any non-emergency messages since COVID. We've used Code Red exclusively for emergency messages.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds good to me. Sounds like you're right. I think it would reach the target audience really well. So, thoughts from the board?
I think Jenny's overall plan looks really good.
Looks good to me.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you for putting the work into that. Do we need to vote on anything with that, or?
I think it would be great just to codify it.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the warrant communication plan that we have seen as part of our packet last week with the addition of Code Red?
So moved.
I second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
All right, and we are only about an hour late on this, but we have public comment. Is there anyone here who is here for public comment? Alan, I do see you. Is there anyone else who is here for public comment as well? All right, Alan, go ahead.
So I wasn't quick enough to raise my hand once you appointed me because I had a couple questions of the board now that I'm a member of a new committee. You've appointed 4 of the 5 members, which is a quorum. Do you want us to wait for the 5th member before we have our first meeting?
Alan, public comment isn't really for dialogue with the board. So I think this is probably something that we can handle with an email afterwards, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Did you have any public comment to make?
I will pass on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to the town administrator's report.
Well, I have 2 things. I could either give the departmental update, just an overview of what the town administrator office, which includes town administrator and the executive assistant, does, or we could go into the town administrator report. It's at the board's pleasure.
Whatever makes you happy.
All right. This office manages the day-to-day as well as the long-term direction for town operations. I'm also technically tasked with the supervision of the town hall personnel, subject to some statutory exception. The thing that I really do want to highlight, though, is it's a 2-person office. As the board is probably aware, I'm the chief procurement officer for the town and serving in effect on an interim as the human resources director. The executive assistant, whom you see as supporting the select board, also functions as a zillion other roles. The web page manager, the Zoom coordinator, our social media presence, the manager of all of the licensure. So this is all of the finagling with the alcohol licenses, as well as the common victualler in class 2 and the new entertainment license. the compiler of the town report, as well as the backup to the building department, so that when the building department assistant is out, the executive assistant is stepping in to be sure that those permits and the inspections are happening on a timely basis, as well as the front desk contact and the first stop for anyone coming in for senior bags. So there's a bunch. We obviously provide support to the advisory committee in terms of scheduling as well as analytics, and to the select board, ideally, hopefully keeping all of you informed on issues as they arise, and the financial and operational performance. Other departments that have come before the board have stated their goals for the year ahead due to this template that this office created. And so the goals for us are basically supporting initiatives that are kind of happening in the background. We're adopting technology. You're all aware we've transitioned from the town of Bolton.com to the BoltonMA.gov. Hoping that it gives us more capability and that we can learn to leverage the tools that we're already paying for. I know that tonight, given the Microsoft outage, is probably not the great time to be touting Microsoft functionality since we've been more or less shut out of our email. But we know that the tools themselves have capability that we're not using to its fullest extent, and still committed to offering some lunch and learn. My earlier intent on offering that was somewhat sidelined by the early departure of our former town clerk, who had been also a big initiator. In the interim, though, the executive assistant has stepped in and is the IT troubleshooter, as well as investigating new programs. The other thing that we have happening, as I've been providing updates, is the rollout of the Transition Municipal website. If you recall, the Civic Plus vendor is moving to a new content management system. We're required to transition, and we opted to do the pay no cost transition with the hopes that this would be more accessible and give us another way of communicating with residents in a more structured fashion, as well as leveraging the fact that we do have relatively limited office hours for the public. That is, or has been, an ongoing process, and again, the executive assistant managing the training rollout for staff members. We're also following up with questions for that vendor, just to be assured that our content is there and that we don't lose functionality. And additionally, we've been supporting the select board in the work on the future of the transfer station, as we'd heard a little bit about tonight. My hope for the year ahead, but looking at it as a calendar year, is also some incremental modernization of our human resources policies and our compensation classification, job descriptions, and all that stuff, so that all of the staffing decisions that we're making are in a clear and up-to-date framework. For smarter ways to work, Bolton was in the vanguard, I want to say around 2016, in transferring to a voice over internet system. The existing voice over internet system is now approximately 10 years old. We've almost paid off our phones that are on sort of a lease or lease to own, but we're looking at changing, or at least exploring through a request for bids, what is available today for a comparable cost. A lot of the functionality that we have is on the cutting edge of 2016, but no longer on the cutting edge. There are things such as auto attendant. There are things where one can manage your phone line and send it to your cell. This would be perfect for our inspectional services department. In our existing contract, we can do that, but at a cost, and that's something that doesn't quite make sense in the 2026 world. OSD is putting out contracts, and we're going to be jumping on that, just soliciting quotes to see what we can do. Likewise, the dynamic signboard, should this be funded, I'm inclined to advance it, would also increase our ability to push out more messaging to our residents and increase communication. What we'd like to do for new rollout, once the website has been upgraded, is provide information of the select board, the short presentations, the town administrator report, ideally some flavor of the packet, since for folks who are watching at home or anyone who wants to reference, we should be utilizing our website to a greater ability. Biggest challenge, its capacity. And its capacity both in terms of it's the two of us. And a cadre of dedicated volunteers who we call in and we would be lost without. But it really is the two of us. And the other capacity is the physical space. We're a little crammed. I'm not complaining about the dead animal smell. This too will pass, but it's tricky. As the new initiatives are added that the board is coming up with, I also want to say, initiatives or statutory regulations, they don't go away. So be mindful. We will do our best to accommodate and to streamline, so to provide excellent service to residents, but realize there's a bunch of stuff already on our plates. And so not a pushback, but we're constantly juggling. And for me, the biggest thing is to keep an eye, though, on, we have a bunch of day-to-day stuff, but keep an eye on the long-term horizon, because of the select board's goals for Bolton and trying to reach the stable financial sustainability. Looking ahead, what we would ask for me personally, I would love assistance on human resources support. And what we are both looking at, though, is trying to figure out strategic investments in technology so that all of us can work smarter. That's my any questions, and I will feel sad if there are questions that are unfamiliar to the board. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marie. That was, I think we have a good sense of how much you and Jenny are doing all the time. And we know how much you have on your plate. You both handle it with dignity and grace. So, thank you. Any questions from the board?
No,
No
I just really appreciate you both a lot.
We're psyched to be here. All right. I can now move to the town administrator report with the challenge. Relatively short. Wanted to alert the board that Alta had altered their phasing. They're seeking the first CO on building 1. That is the big building versus building 3. They're still awaiting DEP approval. Schedule-wise, though, for individuals in the community who've been asking about what is the impact of the development, they're planning for the building commissioner a final certificate of occupancy in the May-June timeframe. Realize that our comprehensive permit requires them to provide an impact analysis on town services prior to our issuing that final CO. As we are now, and I want to say day 188 of the boil water order, the installation of the temporary disinfection still on schedule for February. I know I'd mentioned before, the engineers are going to have a report and costing. That associated costs and permit implications are not yet in. And we'd hope that it would be this week. It now looks like next week. Keeping other projects in the forefront, even though it's definitely not construction season. The work on Forbush Culvert 1, not the culvert that the road was just closed for, but the culvert that Representative Hogan had provided $400K for the initial design, is contingent upon temporary construction only and permanent easements. The DPW director is interested in filing for money from MADOT for the Culvert and Small Bridge program. This is something that is currently carried the culvert itself at about $2 million. We can't shoulder this cost alone, but in order to basically proceed ahead, we would need some latitude or notice whether the temporary and permanent easements would be granted by the private property owner. As the board is aware, I remain indebted to Senator Kennedy for highlighting last Thursday in the Senate session how the state's ongoing reductions in unrestricted government aid. For Bolton specifically, we were called out, exacerbated, and accelerated the need for the operating override. It's nice to know that our elected officials are thinking of us and speaking publicly about the strains that we're encountering. No movement thus far, though, on our two pieces of legislation. Police Chief Search Committee will be conducting preliminary screening interviews in the coming week. The two vacancies, one at the library and on the planning, have both been filled. The library hired Carlina Arsenault as the early childhood librarian. She comes to us from, I want to say, Shrewsbury with 8 years of early childhood librarian experience. Planning board is all set with the Housing Production Plan Committee. As other fast-breaking news, Chris Rogers, who you may know currently as our local building inspector, received his building commissioner certification / designation in the fall. In tandem, also, our existing building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer, Mike Savageau, had announced his plans to retire at the end of this fiscal year. Mike has been working for the town of Bolton for almost 18 years. As mentioned earlier, the assessor's office remains busy fielding inquiries, and just reiterating that deadline of February 2nd for individuals who are wishing to file an abatement. Also wanted to call out the ongoing work of the DPW for their snow operations and their commitment to keeping our road miles open. There's going to be an emergency briefing on Fern. I wasn't aware that the storm was called Fern. Tomorrow, contingency plans are in place for the town hall operations. If the storm is large, the town hall will be closed to the public, and there's increased staffing planned for the fire department due to both the wind chill and the snow, as well as at the police department. For the select board's own edification, I know the DPW director went through a very big presentation, but it was pretty darn cool. And so I've just included it. Should you wonder on that one page, well, what do they do when it's that cold? What's the approach? Just included for edification and fun. As mentioned earlier, our website transition will be happening. It's currently slated for mid-February. We need some details regarding the content migration because our intent is not to lose functionality, but to have it be visually more easily accessible. Advisory, as mentioned, continues its review of departments, having gone through a slew, including police, dispatch, Board of Health, landfill, Park and Rec. And next week there'll be meeting on Tuesday with conservation, IT, historical, and inspection. And for the board's edification, the Insurance Advisory Committee has been reconstituted. All of my emails are now returning. Has been reconstituted and will be meeting in the forthcoming future. Just as a date of note, next Wednesday, the Regional School District will be presenting the first budget update to the school committee. And then the same 2 dates, excuse me, placeholders for the town meeting and town caucus. Under financial, our broker will be announcing our rates on Saturday. Just to keep in mind, each 1% increase in our health insurance is about $7,000. In our fiscal 27 budget, what we've presented, or what we have in our ongoing budget, is expecting a 15% increase in our health insurance premium, which is crushing. There is good news. We'd received our preliminary operating assessment from Minuteman. Their overall budget for their district, the Minuteman Vocational Technical School, overall is coming in under 3% above fiscal 26. Due to enrollment trends, Bolton's preliminary operating assessment is about $44,000 less than last year. And notable shifts, the Conservation Commission approved the agent to pursue a Mass Trails grant. This is a reimbursable grant for the Bower Springs Dam repair. This had come up last year, had been deferred. Now with that approval, I am looking quite favorably at this. This is reimbursable, and a 16% match would be required. But given how critical and how beloved those parcels are, I believe it makes sense. The capital plan, due to the administration, so the DPW director now doesn't have just one lump sum for the wastewater treatment facility, but adequately staging out. Following that premise, we're going to plan to replace things when they break or at the end of their useful life, and staging out here, that is, or here is the schema for that. And then the only other change on the capital plan based on advisory this week is potentially deferring the Memorial Field fencing. That's all I have.
Great, Marie, thank you. Any questions from the board? All right, moving along to select board business. Does anybody have, excuse me, any public service announcements?
I do not.
All right. I think we maybe had a little error on the agenda, because I don't think we have a departmental update public service announcement. No, okay. Any request for future agenda items?
I have one, and it's combining select board reports as well. So last week I attended the Parks and Rec committee meeting, and there are a couple things that I, for one, would want some clarification on, and I think it would be important for the select board to have clarification as well. Those are the current status of field usage fees to athletic associations, the ongoing contractual arrangement with the Boy Scouts for the summer camp, and just an overall update on camp operational costs and registration projections. So I think it would be a good idea to invite Parks and Rec to come to one of our meetings in February to discuss those issues.
That sounds like a good idea to me. So let's see.
And if I can add one other thing. So their camp registration, I think, is supposed to start February 2nd. So it would be a good time in February to get an update on how that's going.
Okay, so do you think it would make sense to wait until later in February when they have maybe a little bit more information?
I think that second meeting in February may be the best time.
Okay, I think that makes good sense. All right, thank you for attending the meeting. I know they're hard for me to get to because they're on weekdays during the day, so it's so thank you for going.
Mhm.
Any other select board reports? All right, next up is consideration of a recommendation for cost of living increases for non-union, non-seasonal employees. And I think, Marie, you have a recommendation.
Well, I wanted to follow up because to be mindful, as you're aware, it's the select board's budget. The advisory makes a recommendation on the select board's budget. My recommendation is twofold for the cost of living adjustment. This is an increment reflecting the inflation impact upon the town non-union staff. My recommendation in that context is a 2% COLA and then codifying the wage adjustment of those individuals who were stepped out at the end of fiscal 25 as an additional step 11, sort of formalizing that. You know, we're shifting our salary schedule. The rationale behind this is, you know, to acknowledge the COLA, the step is what individuals have to acknowledge that they are advancing in knowledge in their position. We have had this step and grade framework for a long time. It's an 8-grade, 10-step system. The thing which is a trickier thing is that the COLA itself is not a one-time expense. It's something which becomes structurally added on. I realized that when advisory had made their recommendation of a 3% COLA, they were, I think, motivated by a spirit of generosity and appreciation for the town staff. And I think all of us appreciate that greatly. My recommendation of 2 is because I sit here and it's a role-based recommendation. If this were a one-time application, that would be fine. The way that a COLA works, though, is that it's compounding. And I wanted to clarify that I think, you know, folks have said, well, this dollar amount, this $17,000 difference between, you know, the 2% and the 3% isn't that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal for tonight, but it's a compounding structural additive thing, and that makes it a big deal. That base shift, from my perspective, it would become a bigger deal in 29 or in 30. Similar to the concerns, I think, that were raised during the operational override. This is a permanent addition. And as I'm looking at our long-term sustainability, I see us moving in a direction to increase our revenues, but I'm not sure how a more generous COLA would move us in a positive direction in terms of sustainably aligning our revenues and our expenses.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering, can you just let us know how a 2% COLA, how that would fit in terms of the COLA adjustments for the union personnel that have settled contracts?
We only have 2 contracts that are currently settled for the and the police is not yet settled. For the DPW and the fire department, we all took a 0% COLA for 26. For the DPW, they've taken a 2%, they've accepted, taken sounds harsh, they've accepted a 2% COLA for fiscal 27. For the fire department, all of the call staff were on a 2% COLA for fiscal 27, and the limited full-time staff have a 4%, which was one of the contentious things I believe that the board had been broached with before we'd voted to ratify the contract.
And just could you go over in a little bit more detail what the bottom line numbers are with a proposed 2% and a 3% increase for 27?
A 2% COLA, we have a step. And the step shows advancement, and that is, you know, you're getting better at your job, and this is what we want to do. We want to reward people as they progress. The COLA is overlaid on the step at a 2% COLA. That's 35,000. Initially, I said it was 31,000, then I realized I'd forgotten, and I feel terrible, I'd forgotten one employee. For a 3% COLA, that would shift to a $53,000 increase overlaid on the stat. These, if you step back though and you think our budget's really quite big, and I get it. It's just from my perspective in this role, it's a compounding addition though to the base that will be rolling forward.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's a kind of walking the edge of the knife, because we do have fabulous employees who we want to make sure that they're properly compensated and that they know how much we appreciate them. But we are also balancing on the edge of a fiscal knife in terms of trying to be very responsible with the taxpayer money. So yeah, I would tend to agree with you that I think 2% is a more responsible number going forward. Just because that gets added into their base essentially. And I think we need to be careful. Bill, Brian?
Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I was just looking for my unmute. I just had a clarification question around steps. And I think I know the answer to this question, but steps are automatic. Is that right?
So they're automatic on an annual basis.
Okay. And then this is sort of a question maybe for future discussion, but sometimes I feel like the number of tools that a municipality has is it's just at its disposal to acknowledge and also incentivize high performing behavior are pretty limited. And so I guess I feel like I'd be interested in having a conversation about like what are the things that a municipality can do so that it's not just so that there can be some individualization and differentiation based on sort of outstanding performance and things like that. But I think I'm on board with the recommendation that you've made.
I'm on board with the 2%. I think it's important to realize that it is compounding, and also to match the union COLA as closely as possible.
So do you need a motion from us, Marie?
I would take a motion. I mean, it becomes your budget, so then we will reflect within our fiscal 27. Advisory could make a recommendation to not approve and to go for a different thing, but I would take a vote from the select board.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept the recommendation of a 2% cost of living increase for non-union, non-seasonal employees for fiscal 2027?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Bill?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. All right, thank you, Marie. The next item on the agenda is kind of a big topic, and I know it's getting late and we probably all want to get going. But it is a check-in on the status of our master plan goals. Jenny, can I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
So this, just as a reminder, this is the select board goals for fiscal year 2026. And the first one of them was the master plan implementation. And, it is a new master plan for us, obviously. And, the select board has a lot of roles to play within it. So, the goal was to, we had some identifiable tasks, that are kind of laid out by quarter. I'm not sure that we've met some of our targets yet. But identifying and ranking the select board tasks, developing a schedule for tackling tasks and designating liaisons with a focus on revenue-related items, checking in with the other responsible partners to learn their priorities, meeting with the responsible parties to review their progress, and review the overall master plan progress at a public meeting towards the end of the fiscal year. So those are, kind of why I wanted to have a discussion about the master plan, and just make sure that we are meeting our benchmarks. So what I thought we could do is just go through the implementation matrix. I've highlighted the specific tasks that are assigned to the select board. And we could just have a quick discussion about whether we're meeting the goals and what steps we could take to make sure that we are on track. So the first select board responsible goal is under preserving and ensuring Bolton's agricultural legacy. And it's a goal of developing a local farmland protection plan. Just for anybody who hasn't seen this before, the different columns, there's an H, which means it's a high priority. 3 to 5 means it's a 3 to 5 year goal. And the next column is all of the different responsible partners in town who are responsible for implementing the goal. So this, this is a goal that doesn't necessarily hit us this year, but that we should be, on track for thinking about within the next couple of years. I don't know if anybody wants to share any thoughts on it. I sort of see this as something that, some of the other boards maybe would be working on developing, and we should check with them on progress or their plan for meeting the goal in 3 to 5 years. But I'm not sure that the select board necessarily has the laboring oar on this one. Any thoughts?
I agree. I think it probably ultimately goes to the select board for final approval, but the drivers on the developing of the plan would be Ag and Concom and Planning Board primarily.
So maybe this would be something that we ask. We just have some conversations with the folks at those other boards, just to make sure it's on their radar and see how what they're looking at to meet this goal. Next is increase the diversity of housing stock and affordable housing options. And this again is a 3 to 5 year goal with a medium priority to seek a nonprofit partner or private housing developer to build affordable units on town-owned lots. Brian, I know you served on the master plan committee, so you probably have more thoughts than I do on a lot of these. But again, I would see this as something that we could focus on a little bit more in the future.
Yeah, it also might be something to flag for Pam as relevant to the work of the Housing Production Plan Committee. I know that when it comes to meeting our SHI goals, the new development at Alta Neshoba essentially puts us well over the threshold of where we need to be. And so I think having the Housing Production Plan Committee take a look at this goal would be a good thing. So let's flag it for Pam.
Okay, sounds good. I think probably we're in a similar boat with these other, with goal 2.1.3. in terms of compliance with affordable housing. And the next one, 2.1.4, is something that's going to pop up several times, which is the Community Preservation Act. Marie, do you just want to very briefly kind of say what that is and what, kind of what the history of it, of the Community Preservation Act is in Bolton?
Sure. My understanding is that the Community Preservation Act had been proposed twice at town meeting. It requires a two-step process: approval at a town meeting and approval at a ballot. The tax itself is in effect, it's a surtax. So it is another way of, in effect, taxing residents by either electing 1 to 3% of your surtax, as well as electing some, exemptions from it. So you can have first $100,000 exempted for residential, first $100,000 exempted residential and commercial, elderly exemption, low income exemption. You can pile them all on. But in effect, the money that the state raises through the Registry of Deeds for sales is put into a pot of, funds. Communities that have opted for the Community Preservation Act, adopting it by this two-step process, are eligible for a match. In the early days of the CPA, towns could receive a match of almost 100% of whatever their surtax was. At this point, since it is very popular across communities, I think out of our comparables, we're the only community that hasn't adopted it in some flavor. The first round match is like almost 17% match back from the state. Entities that are eligible for receiving funds from CPA are for historic, recreation and open space, as well as affordable housing. In effect, you're required to spend certain percentages of the amount that you raise on those three areas. I believe it's a great thing, but also realize it is a surtax. But it is one way of getting funds for items that continue to pop up, notably, preservation and protection of open space, or protection of local farmlands, as well as, renovation of, say, the historic Houghton building. So just putting that out there. I could see that it came up many times in the master plan too. It's a cumbersome two-step acceptance process, and to my knowledge, it had been attempted here twice and did not succeed.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's definitely something that would benefit Bolton in terms of some of the master plan goals. I guess I question whether this is the right time to be focusing on it, because it would be implementing an additional tax on the residents. And I guess my feeling is that while I think the goal is a good one, I think maybe right now is not the time to be pursuing it. Maybe to come back to this one next year. What does everybody else think?
Yeah, I think your read on that is accurate.
I agree.
All right. Reapply for housing choice designation in 2025, presumably. I hope that's already happened because that's come and gone. And then consider using affordable housing trust funds to buy down the cost of existing market homes. That's a 5+ year goal. And again, I think that that's just not a goal that we need to be discussing right now. Just in fiscally, it's, I think, not where we are. Just chime in if you disagree. Otherwise, we'll try and kind of power through this. Next goal is ensure future development aligns with the town's character and resources by supporting new growth and preservation of existing businesses while attracting new investments that align with community needs. My sense on this is that, I think the planning board and economic development committee are already looking at some business development and rezoning ideas that would be helpful. And the support of existing businesses. We have Backyard Bolton that tries to highlight some of the local, local businesses. So I think and this is a 3 to 5 year goal. So I think that we're probably making progress towards that. Anybody have anything to add?
No, I think that's right. But that may also fall into the category of toward the end of maybe this quarter, just checking in with EDC to see if they have any specific things that they can share on that front.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. A very specific goal of pursuing removal of easement and acquisition of the New England Power property, which I have to admit I know absolutely nothing about. I don't know if either of you do, but it's also a 5+ year plan. So I'm not sure we need to dedicate a lot of energy to it tonight. Okay.
No.
All right, and here's one where we get to check the box as completed. We have reestablished an agricultural commission. So I know that we need to check in with them, and I know that they've had some questions about their role and how they're supposed to be most effective. And we appointed Bill as liaison to that commission. So I think we're probably in good shape there. This is another longer range plan to conduct an awareness campaign to highlight Bolton farms and products. And I think that would fall into the category of let's check in with EDC and AgCom later in the year and see how they're doing, what their plan is for that. All right, expanding open space and recreation opportunities. Again, this is another CPA goal. So I think that falls in the same category of not this year. And this is increase inventory of recreational land and facilities, including encouraging collaboration with Boy Scouts and other owners of current or potential recreation properties. This doesn't sound like it would be the select board being a laboring oar, but checking in with Parks and Rec and the other responsible parties. And this is a pretty short-term goal, so.
If we're having Parks and Rec come in February, maybe wise to just tee this up as part of the discussion as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we can highlight, the different goals, and just have a discussion with them then. I think that's a good idea, Brian. Ensure municipal facilities are efficient, safe, and accessible. I feel like we're probably right on target with this in terms of facilities assessments, identifying future needs. And we've discussed, potentially appointing a committee to look at space planning in light of the conditions at Town Hall and Houghton Building. So I feel like we're on track there. One of the things that is a goal is to identify potential locations to expand facilities and integrate with a community center. The community center idea is one of the big goals, I think, in the master plan that reappears. Certainly it's a challenging economic time to have that discussion, but I think it is a often articulated goal of an awfully lot of people in town. So maybe we should have a discussion at a future meeting in terms of how to approach the community center idea. And evaluate the facility needs of the town fire department to store and maintain critical equipment. You know, I think we know the facility needs at this point, but you know, how to resolve that is something we're going to need to come back to. The next one is a 5-year plus goal of hiring a designated grant writer. You know, which I think we can all agree would be an excellent thing to accomplish, but I don't think we're in a fiscal position right now to think about expanding services that way. But it certainly would be a benefit long term. Next again is talking about coordinating financing and implementation of community gathering space. And then the next goal under it is reaching out to neighboring municipalities to collaborate on shared community space and joint programming. And that's something that, you know, I think is, you know, makes sense for sure in the short term. You know, so I think we can check in with COA, who's one of the responsible parties here, and see how they're doing on that. This is improving municipal information sharing and current events, which I think has been a very big theme the last year. And this includes collaborating with the library to organize a web page that hosts a resource calendar of all town events, meetings, and activities. Marie, do you know if that's something that's sort of in coordination with the website going live, or?
I would turn to my colleague, Jenny, on this. I know that there is, you know, options, but on that, I would defer to her.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I was prepping the minutes.
Just wondered whether you knew whether this is a select board goal to collaborate with the library to organize a web page to get a calendar of town events and meetings. Do you know if there's any discussion with the library and with the website going live next month?
There's been no discussion that I'm aware of between the library and because the library has their own website, so it doesn't interface with our website.
Okay. It looks like that's a conversation to have for another day if there's a way to share that resource calendar. So, okay. Create a unified resource of volunteer opportunities. I feel like we're checking the box really well on, you know, increasing volunteerism. Marie, I know that's been one of your goals, and you've been working really aggressively towards getting new volunteers involved. And I feel like we've seen a lot of new faces recently. You know, and hand in hand is utilizing social media outreach to advertise. So I feel like we're doing pretty well on those goals. This is a repeat goal, the community center. And you know, a similar theme of making sure that there's adequate space. These are specifically with regard to the elderly population, but I think they're shared community goals as well. Investigating the need for a shared regional social worker with a focus on elder services. Again, I think we probably can all agree that there's a great need for that, but you know, creating a new position at this point would be tricky, but I think it's something that we can try and keep an eye on. I know that there are some grants in other communities for social workers in the community, so you know, that's something that we can be in touch with Council on Aging and the Board of Health on. And this looks like related to transportation options, but it's a 5-year goal of discussing park and ride. So, and I think that's probably something that, you know, we would not be the laboring oar on. Fund the capital improvement plan for roadway improvements and resurfacing. Marie, is this something that's we're working on with the, the capital fund, or?
Not exactly, but it would be great to dedicate, a portion of the capital stabilization fund to backstop and to let Randy meet his planned road, maintenance without waiting for the vagaries of state funding.
Okay, so is this something that we should be having a further discussion?
I would love that.
Okay, all right. Identify funding opportunities for the DPW basin maintenance program, 3 to 5 years, but it sounds like that's something that we would not be the laboring oar on. Local climate planning capacity. I think most of the remaining goals are related to climate. So, and the first one is hiring a professional, climate action professional, and establishing a climate action committee to make recommendations about the town's carbon footprint. I'm not sure, again, I mean, I do certainly understand the importance of climate planning, but adding any more expense and employees, I think, is not in this year's, not in the cards for this year. But if anybody on the board has thoughts about how we could be working towards these goals without without hiring additional professionals, I'd certainly love to hear them.
I think maybe one suggestion, Kate, would be in one of our meetings, I'm thinking after annual town meeting, but before the close of this fiscal year, maybe in a select board business section, we could just have a future agenda item where we kind of do a similar exercise to what we've just been doing, but with a more specific focus on the climate and resilience related elements of the master plan that the select board has some role in, just because there are a number of them. I mean, I remember in the process there were sort of climate and resiliency related recommendations throughout the report. And so maybe we just have a dedicated 15-minute conversation and decide like what truly is our most immediate priority, and who's going to be taking the lead on next steps instead of trying to figure it out tonight.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense because all of these are, you're right, there are a lot of them here that are lumped together. So let's look to put that on an agenda toward the end of the fiscal year.
Yep.
All right. This is climate related.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah. So, and that's it. That's it. So I know that was a little hard to get through, but yeah, I feel like at least we're touching the master plan and making sure that we know what our role is. So getting towards the end here, the next agenda item is a request by me to distribute a communication to Century Mill residents and have a discussion about next steps. I think everybody has in the packet a copy of the draft memo that at the moment I can't put my finger on. But it is in the packet. So I did have a chance to speak with the chair of the planning board and the town planner and got some background information about Century Mill. And I think some of the background has been shared with other members of the board as well. and it's, there's a pretty detailed memorandum that was prepared by our town planner in June of 2025 that really laid out in quite a good amount of detail what the options were that we had been discussing with the Century Mill residents when they came before us at our December meeting. So it's my suggestion and my request that we would agree to, yes, Jenny, if you could screen share it, that would be great, because I can't find it at the moment. My request would be that we distribute that memo to the residents of Century Mill, because I'm not sure that that they have specifically seen it. But I think one of the challenges is that we're talking with some different groups of Century Mill residents, and it seems fair to me that they all have the same information in front of them that they can all refer to. And that they can look at the pretty clearly articulated options and hopefully as a group come to agreement as to which of those options they want to pursue to move towards street acceptance. And the other thing that I point out in this draft is that there are some pretty significant water system and drainage issues at Century Mill that are under the jurisdiction of DEP and DPU. And it is my understanding from just as a practical matter that those issues really need to be resolved because they impact the roadways. So before the roadways should be considered for acceptance, those issues really ought to be addressed. So I'm curious if the board has any thoughts or whether there's agreement that we should send out this memo with a copy of the town planner's June 11th, 2025 memo.
One question that I had, Kate, was I know that when a number of the residents came in December, they had asked to be on a future sort of follow-up select board agenda in, I think, February. And I guess I'm just wondering whether whether the memorandum ought to make mention of whether we have a date certain for that, because I can just imagine that some of the folks that receive this note from us, along with the memo from the town planner, will be like wondering, well, when do we have a chance to come back in and talk about this? So if we know the date of that, we might want to say that, or at least decide it in this meeting so it's public information.
Yeah, I know that I had committed to that at our December meeting. And I don't want to go back on my commitment, but I also am not sure what we will have to add to it. But we could put it on for the it would be the second meeting in February. So I think that's the 26th. But my concern is that there's a limited role for the select board to play here. And having done more investigation, it is clear to me that there is a path forward that has been set forth by the planning board, which is really the entity that needs that the residents need to be dealing with to get towards street acceptance. I'm willing to put them back on the agenda because I said I would, but I'm not sure what resolution we can offer them other than the options that have been presented to them. But we could do the second meeting in February, and if you'd like, I can add a sentence to the end of the memo.
I don't think necessarily. I think just if we say, if we sort of have discussed tonight that that's when it's going to be, that makes sense. The second meeting of February.
Yeah. Bill, any thoughts?
I think it's a good idea to send this out until they in that second paragraph until they come up with some type of organization or spokesperson. It's really difficult to weed through all the various comments and ideas and opinions.
And I do know that there is pending litigation by some of the residents against the developer. It's not all of the residents, but it is a large group of them. So maybe they'll be able to bring other people under that umbrella and just kind of designate a spokesperson. Because I don't think any of this is anything that can be done piecemeal with only
Yeah.
certain contingents of homeowners.
And
So-
if there is any capital outlay, they have to have some structure in place in order to take care of that in the future.
Yeah. Okay, so is there a motion to send out this memorandum to the residents of Century Mill Estates concerning the acceptance of public ways?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor, Bill,
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay, and I am also a yes on that. So I know Jenny has been working on putting together a list of the residents, and we will take care of getting that sent out. Almost finished. Is there a motion to approve bills and payroll warrants W-26-15?
So moved.
I will second it.
Sorry, I forgot I was
That's all right.
muted.
All in favor, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. And our last agenda item is to review minutes. I think we only have one set from December 18th with some changes. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 18th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call, Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Anyone?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All right, all in favor, Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night. Stay safe.
That time for the record was 9:31.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Jenny.